Welcome. It's me, Aaron the Artist. Thanks for sitting down with me today for another relaxing art lesson. Today we're going to be drawing the basic proportions for an anime character. But first I want a quick apology about the tripod that you can see in the left-hand corner. I've had to zoom out ever so slightly compared to usual, just so that I can fit the entire character on screen. I know it takes away from the aesthetic ever so slightly. Now you can see I've done just a tiny bit of prep work ahead of time. What I've done is measured out the entire height that the character is going to be. And you can also see these dots where I've measured out different sections. There are 6 different sections. The idea behind this character is I'm going to draw a character that is exactly 6 heads tall from top to bottom. So I'm going to draw the head in that top section there. And then there are going to be 5 other sections underneath, which comprise the total height of the character. A 6 heads tall character is pretty standard for anime, so if you stick along with this video, you'll learn a pretty standard set of proportions. First things first, let's get in that head shape. Now I'm not going to bother with the entire Loomis method for drawing the head for the purpose of this video. I'm just going to rough in a very stereotypical anime looking head that we can work with, taking up that first top section. Now that we have that in place, we can measure everything else relative to the size of the head. So the next section down is going to be 1 head in length as well, and that section is going to contain the neck and the upper part of the torso. So the neck is only going to take up a tiny little bit of space here. I'm not even going to worry about measuring it. We're just going to estimate that it takes up this much space here, and then we're going to draw a box shape for the upper part of the torso like this. A box that is wider at the top than it is at the bottom. Now different people use different shapes for this section. Some people use more complex shapes than this that look maybe more like a rib cage. I prefer to use shapes that I know that I can confidently draw in any pose and from any angle, and for me a simple box like this gets the job done. I tend to draw these little spheres in between connecting parts just to show that an area is flexible and can bend. And then underneath that we're going to draw in the hips, and the hips all the way down to the crotch are going to take up yet another head's length. And for these I go with this sort of diamond shape, which is again slightly thicker at the top than it is at the bottom as it tapers down towards the crotch. And then either side we're going to add the legs. It's worth pointing out that different people have different sized waists and different sized hips. I add a quick 2 more spheres, 1 on each side, to show that you can bend your legs at the hip joint. And then we're going to start adding those thighs. Now the entire thigh is again going to take up roughly 1 head of length. The knee falls right at the end of that 4th head. That then leaves us the remaining 2 heads to draw the lower leg and also the foot. If you look closely, the lower leg seems to be taking up, I'd say, maybe 1 1/3 of a head, because it doesn't start quite at the top of the 4th head, and it doesn't end all the way down at the bottom of the 6th head either. But in any case, we add the feet right at the bottom, and that rounds out all 6 heads. The anatomy for the legs I always find quite tricky, but we're not going to worry about that for now. This is just a basic shapes video going over the basic proportions. If we need an anatomy video, we'll do that perhaps another time. But it's time now to add the arms. We can start by using some spheres for the shoulder joints. The distance from shoulder to shoulder is probably just underneath 2 heads in width. It might be 1.5 heads in width, certainly not too much less than that, and probably not too much more than 2 heads in width either, unless the character is really quite broad and bulky. The elbow falls at the waistline, and then the hand falls right down at the crotch. If you struggle placing the hand in terms of the length of the arm, you should just barely be able to cover your crotch with both hands. That's about the length of the entire arm. Alright, well that does it for all the basic proportions. I know that the drawing itself is pretty rough around the edges. The image doesn't exactly look aesthetic. But you know, they are just guidelines that you're going to use to make a nice image afterwards. It's just a basic structure. Well, any place, we've got a total of 6 heads in height, the first being the head itself, the second being the neck and the upper torso, the third being the hips, the 4th being the thighs and part of the knees, the 5th being the other part of the knees and the calves, and then the 6th being the rest of the lower leg and the feet. In terms of the width from shoulder to shoulder is 1.5 to 2 heads in width, and the hips are about the same, maybe a little bit wider depending on the character. Okay, well, just to round things out, I'm going to show you what you can do if you take these guidelines and add some details, and show you how you can turn that into an anime character pretty easily just by adding a little bit of clothing and drawing the facial features and the hair over top of it. We're going to do pretty much everything except for the feet, because we know nobody likes to draw feet if they don't have to. Maybe we'll make a feet tutorial on another occasion. There you have it. I hope this video was some use to you in terms of learning the basic proportions for anime. If you want to see any of my personal art, you can see that over on YouTube Shorts. Until next time, folks, have a nice day.